get ready for a spectacular show. But Hans has no idea that Nola has already dashed to Tony's spot to spill the tea about the police finding. Hans gathered all the top brass like a kindergarten teacher to isolate Tony, while Tony was busy wondering how Hans would pull off this red door bang. In the blink of an eye, Hans pulled out a pile of takeout boxes from his bag. Now that's what I call a feast. Tony tossed the box out in anger, but the fat guy cheered, delicious. If Tony doesn't eat, I will. Hans won the first round, sent Tony for a briefcase only to take the wrong one. Everyone laughed. Tony stayed stone-faced. Hans said it was a joke, causing everyone to laugh heartily. The main event started as Hans unveiled his prepared newspaper. He declared it was Demo's order to seize gang control. Everyone obeyed except Tony, who rolled his eyes. Hans proudly claimed to be Demo's spokesperson, insisting on unconditional obedience. Everyone agreed except Tony. Tony slammed down a copy, shouting, "This paper has an out-of-place name, Penna." At this interloper, the atmosphere turned electrifying as everyone's gaze locked onto Hans, who remained unfazed, like he was watching a show. Hans explained it was Demo's brilliant strategy. As long as the police think he's dead, he can cleverly resurface under innuendo. The finger was real, but it belonged to someone else. Makes perfect sense. Everyone immediately relaxed and put down their weapons. However, Leo, who was always by Hans' side, sensed something was off, even though he knew that finger definitely belonged to Demo. Not wanting to blow his cover, he stayed silent, watching everyone get roped into Hans' persuasion. Furious, Tony lunged at Hans, shouting, "Prove Demo's alive." But Hans was speechless. How can a dead man prove it? Just when hope was lost, Remo said Demo called this morning. Tony looked utterly confused. But he didn't dare challenge Leo's authority and had to leave with harsh words, changing the atmosphere completely. Leo thought, "I don't want to know what happened to the boss. I just know Hans' smartness can help us live better." So he vowed to wholeheartedly support Hans, who was overjoyed to gain a loyal ally, ensuring his murder plans would stay safe. However, when he returned to his apartment, he found the door wide open, giving him quite the scare, only to see Tony sitting in the corner, staring at a finger model. "Hans, what's going on here?" Tony exclaimed frantically. Hans nervously claimed Demo foresight and made this model a year ago, just in case he'd need to issue orders under Demo's name one day. That excuse was laughable at best. Tony said nothing until Hans woke up to find himself tied to a chair. He was in a bind and began brainstorming ways to save himself, and after an intensive conversation, he finally got through to Leo. Leo rushed over upon hearing Hans was tied up in the apartment, right when Tony came back from takeout, feeling just as unhinged. Tony thought of killing Hans to take his place but got startled by Leo's voice, leaving the scene at a standstill. The sudden arrival of a waiter broke the tension, and as he saw the waiter fleeing, they were left helpless. Seeing the commotion, Hans fanned the flames, saying why not wait for the cops to chat, as the boss might report them. Tony knew he couldn't kill Hans today, but feared Leo would kill him if he left. Hans quickly explained. The cops could come anytime, only if Four would act rashly. Tony finally put down the knife and dejectedly left the room. Hans realized as long as Tony would be back, he needed to brainstorm a meticulously crafted plan pronto. One that avoided gang warfare while framing Tony and handing him over to Boris, ensuring his own survival too. To be absolutely certain, Hans had the others watch Molt's confession video so they knew Tony was the traitor. Then with their help, he could move to the next step, but he needed bait, and Mora was just perfect for the role. Since he didn't want to be caught off guard, Hans casually mentioned in conversations with others that Tony was involved with Mora's girlfriend. Sure enough, as Hans anticipated, Mora rushed to the hotel upon hearing the news and was further confirmed upon seeing his girlfriend. He stormed toward the room, lightly touching the lingerie on the door, unable to contain his fury any longer. He pulled out his gun, blazing with rage, but when the door swung open, his enthusiasm evaporated. Mora realized he was tricked by Hans. Leo threatened him, declaring he must obey them now. Otherwise, they'd upload the video online, revealing a cop shot at an innocent couple, and then see if the court would hold him responsible. Mora was utterly stunned, leaving him with no choice but to cooperate. Leo ordered him to call Tony, informing him that in 2 hours, Hans would be interrogating an officer. To keep secrets under wraps, Molt in the truck was loaded with firecrackers and delivered right to his girlfriend's doorstep. They even prepared gifts for him, red wine for the future father-in-law, flowers for the mother-in-law. What a way to propose. Just when Mora thought this was the reward from the gang, the high-ranking members pushed him out of the truck. After taking care of business, they casually drove away, showing just how slick Hans' methods were. Upon receiving the news, Tony rushed to the basement only to find it was his acquaintance Molt, completely unaware of what was happening. To save his own skin, he ruthlessly offed Molt, not realizing it was all caught on hidden cameras, turning into evidence against him. Everything was going according to plan, and Hans unwittingly chuckled, unaware that when Tony attempted to leave, the door was already locked. To Hans' surprise, this was just the beginning, not the end. Subscribe for more thrilling content.